All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to PMP Live. I'm Alan Watke. Sorry about that. Welcome to PMP Live. Thank you for joining us in this new format where we continue to bring you the authors. Where we continue to bring you the authors that you love and their new books to the Politics and Prose community. Anytime during this event, you can click on the green button below to purchase Michael Arcenaux's book on Politics and Prose website. Today is our last day of offering the free media mail shipping, so please do make sure to take advantage of that and order it tonight. Our physical stores are closed, and we need your online purchases in order to keep bringing you the programming Politics and Prose is known for. Tonight, you can ask the author a question by clicking on Ask a Question, and which can be found near the bottom of your screen. You can also read other people's questions and even vote for one that you'd like to hear answered the most. A reminder that unlike our in-person events, the author, hosts, and audience members cannot see you through the screen, so feel empowered to stay in your PJs without judgment. Finally, we just want to thank you for being with us tonight. We're so thankful to our family of loyal customers, keeping our business and our spirits afloat. So with that, tonight I'm so excited to welcome Michael Arceneaux to PMP Live, celebrating his much anticipated second book, I Don't Want to Die Poor. Michael is a New York Times bestselling author of I Can't Date Jesus, Love, Sex, Family, Race, and Other Reasons I've Put My Faith in Beyonce. He is a regular contributor to Esquire, Elle, Essence, NBC News, Think, and among many others. And he's also written for the New York Times, the Washington Post, Complex, Rolling Stone, Wired, BuzzFeed, and many, many more. So it's so fantastic to have him tonight. Tonight he's going to be joined in conversation with Gillian White, deputy editor of The Atlantic, where she writes and edits a broad range of topics related to economics and business, including housing, poverty, and economic policy. It is so great to have you both here. I'm really excited to see what your conversation is going to be. And so now I'd just like to welcome Michael Arceneaux and Gillian White to PMP Live.
Well, thank you for having me. Is that me? It's not me, right?
I think we're good.
Okay. Well, in between everything, I heard people cheering, hospital workers. I got some news alert about Donald Trump doing something ridiculously insane and technical difficulty, so that actually makes perfect sense right now.
It makes the world for this pandemic. We're gonna make it through, friends. But I guess my first question is, to that end, Michael, how are you doing in the pandemic?
I am as well as one can be in a nightmare. I'm happy to see a familiar face. I'm happy to be trying to help our indie bookstores. I'm actually happy people are still trying to read. But yeah, I don't know. It's insane.
Yeah.
And somehow, like, Hot Topic of Wendy Williams isn't like sustaining the way it used to.
Well, I'm so happy to be here with you. I am in love with this book. It's so good. It's right at the intersection of all the things that I love and love talking about, race and economics and finances.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, sorry everyone who's watching. We're going to try and figure out what is going on with this audio, but we're also going to try and soldier on with the conversation.
Yeah.
So I guess my first question, Michael, is why choose to write about such a sensitive and personal topic? I know that you write, about yourself and personal things,
Yeah.
Money is a tough one.
Yeah. Well, I think. I mean, if you ever really get to know me, well, I don't even really have to get to know me. There's not a day I really don't really mention my student loans. Because they really do impact so much of my life. And I think for me, I was one tired of reading about student loans, usually in the context of it's really, really bad and awful, yet no one does anything about it, or these kind of stories where they say X person paid off $96,000 in student loans by like figuring out how to make cat food taste like General Tso's, and you can do it too. And in the meanwhile, it's like all these narratives about millennials basically ruining everything without kind of admitting the fact that like most of us are born under 40, and under 40 in the last 40 years, basically everything went to shit. So we're doing the best that we can. So I mean, for me, talking about money is really personal, but I felt like with I Can Date Jesus, that was about learning, figuring out who you are and on your own terms. And I think there's a beauty in that. There's like a freedom to that. But like to me, actual freedom, like having choice, is expensive. And I think more often than not, we don't really talk, at least in detail, about how much so much money controls our fate. So I wanted to like talk about that. I wanted to talk about kind of I think the myths of social mobility. I feel like in particular, Black college graduates or people who, you know, suffer from private student loans, which disproportionately impacts Black people, doesn't get talked about. I just felt, you know, even if I felt really uncomfortable about it, I thought it was like a good means to an end, and hopefully kind of shake up, I think, again, what I thought was like really sorry narratives.
Real quick, I'm going to jump in here. I think Gillian might need to refresh her screen.
All right.
I am loving how this reminds me of like all the stuff on PBS. I almost wish I could find Alexis Tyler.
All right, so I'm going to wait for her to reconnect.
Thank you for your patience, everyone watching. We appreciate it. I would play Anita Baker, but you probably have to pay for that, so can't.
Okay, I'm going to see if she is reconnecting. Yeah, Anita Baker.
Pandemics are sometimes really hilarious.
It's so weird because we were like perfect in the green room.
No, yeah. I mean, for those, you know, with us, everything was very smooth, like the last 30 minutes. But that's just, it's fun. That's actually my release week.
Am I back?
Yes, and we were just mentioning how everything was so perfect, like right before we went live. But that, to answer your original question, is exactly how my pub week went. That's how pub day went. This is exactly how everything went. You just roll with it. It's chaos after chaos, but you just roll with it.
How have you been dealing with that? I know this is so tough, and like the moments right before and right after a book publishes, after pub date, are so critical to be out there and be talking to people and be seen. And you haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, like I found out today, I actually did not make, or at least I didn't debut on the New York Times bestseller list like I Can't Date Jesus, which was disappointing. But the positive is I actually apparently sold more than I did the first time. But that's the thing about the list, like that's not, it's never really just about sales, it's like a combination of a lot of things, but you know, driven by sales. It's disappointing, but you know, I didn't really write the book to make a list. I wrote the book because I felt like working class Black folk didn't really have a voice. Now I have like a clearer head because I think, you know, after the technical difficulties, my shit snapped back in. But you know, I wrote it because a lot of times I wanted people who didn't feel like they had a voice, or people I feel like didn't have a voice, feel like they can be heard. And regardless of what I did the first week out, the book sold well despite a pandemic. So thank you everybody that bought it. Please keep buying it. And more than anything, I have a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't be talking about folks that look like us, and particularly not folks who grew up like me. So that in of itself is an achievement. And so I'm taking that in stride. On a day-to-day level, just as a person, I try to keep habits. I think last year for me was really, really difficult. A lot of the financial hardship people will be dealing with, I dealt with last year. A lot of the deaths that you didn't see coming, I dealt with last year. Granted, it did not come with the doomsday plot and the fear we all have of, I literally just got some Lysol wipes yesterday and I was so excited. And the fact that my mask arrived like a day early before my birthday this past Sunday just lets you know, like, to put things in perspective. But I have moments, but sometimes I just need to. I write about it and I smoke weed and now I listen to Karen Clark Sheard because I watched that Lifetime movie with the Clark sisters. It might be my version of meditation. I work out a lot in my apartment. Usually MSNBC sometimes used to be my mom and Gillian. Now it just makes me like angry. So I just kind of disconnect when I need to. I try to be really focused because I think if I have the luxury, the privilege to be able to work right now, should make as much money as possible because we don't know how to go. But at the same time, if I don't have it in me, then I just chill out because this is all crazy. How are you doing? Even though
I'm doing okay, I can't really complain. As far as when this pandemic hit, in terms of luckiness, I'm healthy. I've got somewhere to live. I remain employed. So I'm just really, really grateful for all of those things. But, I think you're exactly right. And I'm thinking so much now about the people whose jobs and whose livelihood and whose safety is in jeopardy. Not just because, maybe they're frontline workers, but also because people aren't working and they don't have the economic safety net. And the thing that we know is that most people don't have the economic safety net to be able to not work or for checks to come late or anything else. And that's why part of the reason I thought your book was so incredibly timely, because I think it does a lot of the work that people who are in financial journalism are always trying to do, which is dispel the myth that if you are not 100% financially stable, if you don't have six months of living expenses saved up, that somehow you were irresponsible or you did something wrong, right. Or if only you hadn't been getting so many frappuccinos, you would be in a better position. But we know that it is empirically false. That is not how it works. And that's part of the reason that I was so excited to have this conversation with you, because I think there's also this thing that now happens, which is the layered on kind of visuals and trappings and aura of success, and then what you're really dealing with underneath, and the difficulty bridging the two. And obviously I want people to buy the book. They can click on that green purchase underneath. But I also wanted you to talk a little bit about kind of one of the first stories you tell in the book that really just it ripped my heart out. And it's this moment where you're having this incredible success and this incredible moment of having just released your first book after years of writing. And you just published in the New York Times. And all of it, though, feels kind of gutted because you're in such a bad financial place. Can you talk a little bit about that moment?
Oh yeah, well, it was a couple moments. I know in the beginning of the book, I was finally starting to get paid speaking gigs. I did my first late night appearance. I actually released the essay in the Sunday Review that was the genesis of this book. So things were kind of going finally in the trajectory I wanted. But I think what a lot of people are knowing now, on one end, no matter what you make, more often than not, most Americans are 1 or 2 paychecks away from financial ruin. So it doesn't really necessarily matter, what the amount of the check is. If you're living check to check, the system is fundamentally designed for you to fail. No one should be in that kind of precarious a position, which is why so many are in right now. But in my case, and for a lot of people, that's exacerbated by the structure of the student loan debt and how much it controls people's lives. In this case, literally just a clerical error blew up what should have been I wasn't going to pretend life was perfect. I was still struggling, but it wasn't going to be that hard. I literally struggled to just not only eat, but to actually get transportation, even though we're going to reimburse me and pay for it, to even get to the event, which was a really fancy event with all Secretary of States and presidents and all these things. Granted, I was just talking to Andrew Sullivan, but a gig is a gig, and it was, an honor, and I barely had the money to get there, only to be lectured by some some person who clearly has no idea about anything outside of his own bubble, about how I'm the privileged one and how I'm the elitist. And that's what I had to listen to that entire time. And it was not him per se. I don't care about him. I don't think he has anything of value. to say, but just the entire experience itself, along with what came afterwards, was humiliating. Even having, making the New York Times bestseller list and losing my health insurance that same week. Even actually just to think about my own stuff, like, the week I made the list, the first time I lost my health insurance and I was like high on an elliptical, drowning, Now I'm high because I'm happy. I'm kidding. But no, I just think like it's all about perspective. And I try to, again, throughout the book, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to detour from like the question, but it's really just to kind of paint the picture of like struggle and just kind of remove this idea of what you think success looks like. People would say, they hear a tag or they think even just to have a book, or even having a major publisher, but they don't know how much money you actually make. People don't realize how few Americans. There is an ample reading community, but then there's also a sizable portion of population that does not read, and they do read, it's even smaller. It's so many different levels, and people don't kind of take that into account. They just look at this image. But we're kind of conditioned to just kind of see an image and not really ask questions about like behind that. But we're all kind of screwed over by wage stagnation. I can keep going, but I'll stop now. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to remove this idea of what people thought it should look like. I was on TV, but I was struggling and couldn't eat. And I was about to have like this fancy event, but I barely could make it. So is that successful? In some ways, yes, but that's also like American success, which is.
Yeah. I want to remind people that you guys can click on that ask a question button and go ahead and put in questions for Michael that we will get to.
If you got it.
So I want to drill down on that a little more, just because, you and I are friends. We've known each other for a while. And I read that and I was like, damn, this breaks my heart. Like at a moment where we were all just like so hyped up on you and excited, but like, it also makes sense, right? Like finances are the things that you know the least about of other people in their lives. People are more willing to share things about like their struggle with infertility or their divorce or their affair than they are about their financial situation. And it's really, really scary. And I think it's really hard for a lot of people. Do you feel more exposed now having this book out than you did the first one, which was also so personal?
I'm definitely more, I'm more exposed in the second book. I mean, I guess I'm more exposed, but I'm at peace with whatever I put in the book. Otherwise I wouldn't have, put it in there. If I don't want something in there, I won't put it. It's definitely more personal to talk about money, because I realized even through writing the book, just how much money plays a role in, money can't buy you happiness, but I like to think money would make my happier. It also gives you, again, more choice. And when you don't have any choices, and I took that out on myself, just the pressure to like perform, the pressure to not feel like I'm letting my mom down as like another Black man because I have my debt attached to her name. Yeah, just a lot of pressure. I'll quit now. I feel like I could hear myself singing the "Touched by an Angel" theme.
No, I mean, I think that's all fair. I think, also the idea of like bill collectors calling up your mom, the idea that's not just you.
Yeah. Woo. And she's always been so kind about it. She's never rubbed anything in my face. But I will say it's always been hard to even talk about the great things that's happening because of like that stain. And some other reasons if you read I Can't Date Jesus. But for the most part, it's a lot of that. And then there's still like this fear because you don't want to get too excited about anything because, even now, this is the first time in my life I actually feel like I was getting like security. And, where there's a pandemic and Donald Trump is president, what could go wrong?
Yeah, I want to come back to that security question actually in a bit. But first, I want to talk about kind of where the genesis of financial insecurity, or at least feeling financially insecure, started for you. So I want to talk about like, what is the extent to which you felt that growing up versus when the debt you had was really, really your own in college?
I hate the I think middle class is just like a facade. I guess we would be like lower middle class, working class, but that could be, the area itself we consider. I guess it depends on the label. If I want to be blunt, I noticed certain people read my book, even though I never use the word poor, they assign that word to it, but that's more about this than anything. So whatever. Yeah. But no, I think for me, I mean, we had burglar bars. I mean, I didn't necessarily know I was like a certain way. I think as a child, you don't really know. I think once like middle school and you compare your clothes to somebody else, or the realities of like what you can and cannot have, that becomes more apparent. Or in my case, I didn't necessarily go to my zone school. I went to a school that was outside of that. Granted, I was still kind of hood too, but it was still different. And so that was kind of brought to my attention. And then the debt aspect, though, I just, actually, I just honestly the loan thing. I mean, I didn't grow up with money, but I mean, I had food, I had things, and then I had jobs. I like worked for things that I wanted, and if I couldn't have it, did that make me mad? Sure, but then you get over it. You used to going without. I think the loan thing is different in that like these people are basically like payday lenders saying we will ruin your life and your mom's life essentially, which will impact other people. This will all be your fault. That's like a different type of pressure to have so much of your fate and like even jobs that you can't accept or careers you can't really entertain, certain work you can't do, you can't take vacations, you can't do, it's so many other different things. I think that's the difference. I think it's one thing to grow up without and you do your best. You can rationalize that, you can accept that. Having this like chain to you is just a totally different experience. Hopefully that answers the question.
No, it does. I want you to talk a little bit about how easy it was to take out those private loans for an education, for something that was supposed to.
It was easy because my mom had good credit. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing was, I don't want to go into details, but my mom worked really hard to go back to school when I was like middle school, elementary, like late elementary, to make more money. That didn't mean we had more money. It was still like, we still live in the same house. But yeah, that said, we couldn't even go through my grandparents, which is a lot of other people did because they're like wouldn't allow that. So this is what I mean. Like my mom was kind of the first to really kind of start pulling it together, and all of us supposed to be kind of do even better. So I mean, it was easy to get the loan. Also because frankly, they prey on us. Mm-hmm. I mean, private lenders, they go after Black college students, particularly at any school, but most assuredly if you go to certain types of HBCUs, but most HBCUs in general, because they already know just in terms of funding, even a school like Howard, who has and who doesn't. So, I mean, it was easy to get the loan. Repaying it is something else. And it's not even just about, I know I'm looking around, but I just kind of make sure I put it right. I'll do it anyway. But I think just them not willing to work with you at all. Credit card companies usually work with you. Government will work with you. Car lenders will work with you sometimes. Most private student loan lenders usually like pay us and that's it. I literally looked at the site today because I'm trying to just pay off that balance as much as possible, especially in this economy. And I looked at the terms and there's still nothing there. There's really like this little Corona thing. Like maybe you might get a little break for that. But more often than not, you don't. It's just give us our money or your life is a wrap.
Right. And you didn't have any real sense when you were signing up for those that would be substantively different than like federal loans or anything else. You thought a school loan is a school loan is a school loan, or?
I knew they would be, I thought they would be more amenable because the language did not suggest that it would be so stringent. I do remember certain conversations, but once even paying them back, you learn, as I have, and I explain even in the book, you'll hear multiple different things from multiple different people who work at these lenders at any given moment. So that's its own nightmare. But I guess I just also didn't anticipate media as I knew it imploding. Like I knew media didn't pay like great jobs, but I also thought at the same time magazines still existed. The advertising model still applied. Subscriptions were still a thing. People still paid for content. They're back now a little bit. So like all of those things were kind of going on. So like the loans itself wouldn't have controlled that. Even if I had government loans, it would have been a different type of struggle, but it still would have been a struggle because that didn't exist. And then you add the fact that the Great Recession happened. It's just two things happen at once. So, of course, the choices I made have consequences, and I admit that, and I write about that. But as I also point out, there you go.
Sorry, y'all, that's Barry.
Barry. Those things are out of our control. In the same way, like right now with college graduates, they did everything right. They won't even get a graduation.
Yeah.
Or God knows, like in terms of jobs, and there's nothing I can tell them that will change that reality, because as it happened to me, as it's happening to them, as it's happening to us, even in this moment, just some things that are kind of beyond our control. We're not as in control of our fate as we would like to believe. Just kind of have to deal with stuff as it happens.
Is there anything you wish you knew then, even if it's just about like shame and how many people are hiding or cloaking their financial situation, that you would tell somebody who's coming out and finding themselves in a similar situation now where they want to be a writer? The media industry is in particular vulnerable to recessions. Yeah. The model, even when it works, isn't great and super sustainable. But they're like, this is what I want to do. This is what I went to school for. I went to school. I got my diploma. I did really well, but I'm scared. What would you tell them?
The initial one, I don't think I would do any. I mean, I just kind of wish, that fine recruiter I talked about from page 1 of I Don't Want It Out Poor. I wish I had been convinced, or had convinced myself a year sooner that I could have done it, because I probably would have gotten, I would have done more research. I would have won more scholarships. But I can't really go back. But I kind of wish that part had been different. But I don't regret leaving, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be here. It's kind of like, that's the cost of like, social mobility in a lot of cases for this country, like certain types of mobility that you want. So, that was the cost. But I think the problem is it shouldn't have to cost. People shouldn't have to pay that type of cost. As far as, being a writer and want to pursue a career, I'm like, listen, it's even worse now than when I graduated, but I would never discourage someone from doing something that they are committed to doing. My only advice is to be very realistic about how much money, how you're going to support yourself, how much money that is, how does that cover stuff, what other things can you do, or are you willing to do other things? And that could be other types of writing. Personally, some people don't want to write advertorial copy. I don't mind. You just basically acting like Marcus Graham from Boomerang, the original one, doing ad copy and shit. Pays really well. Now more than ever, they let you do it. Then you can write, your pieces that really speak to your heart. Or you can do like grant writing, tech writing. You can do other types of communication work. You can do consulting. Like, you can do so many other types of things within just kind of like media. Like some of the things that just are kind of frankly just boring or not as interesting or doesn't get you as much attention. They usually pay better. You should be willing to do that. You should be willing to do things that don't involve writing at all, because I just think, frankly, right now, there are no jobs. The people who have jobs now are holding on for dear life. Mm-hmm. And if we're being, blunt, I think right now what's happening is, unfortunately, this pandemic is expediting a lot of things that were happening anyway, because media was kind of, not all media, because where she works is actually fine. Actually, yes, that's the thing.
I think everyone, though, is in a knock on.
Everyone should be worried. And I mean, suck it up, but like, that's another thing for writers. Realistically, it's not impossible, but there are certain places I would be wanting to pursue a job. I mean, that's easier said than done, but like, you need to look at publications like The Atlantic that have already been written about for like recent years about actually know how to make money, actually growing the subscription model, actually doing things to show you that they can sustain to actually probably pay you, versus other places that rely on other things that have already dried up and are already laying people off. And that requires a lot of research, because for me, when I went back, even before I went back home, if you knew me in college, I always had very specific goals in mind. Everything was like a next step. I don't know if that's a Houston thing, but anything that gets me feel closer to Beyonce.
There it is.
But I look at life as like a great album rollout from like the 90s and 2000s. So I believe in planning and a lot of research. And sometimes I think a lot of folks just like the idea of being a writer would actually want to do like the grunt work and the hard shit, even learning how to like chase your checks properly, how to deal with that, doing the pitching. Some people can't even be bothered to send like emails or like call people.
Right.
I know
people thinks they're going to be Carrie Bradshaw, just like sitting there shopping for shoes. And half of it is chasing
Mama had down. Y'all forgot she was white. It ain't like that for everybody.
All right, let's get to some questions from our audience. The first one is from Giovanni Charles. What do you think we can do moving forward to move past the idea of poverty being more of a personal issue as opposed to systemic? Also, love you and waiting for my coffee to come.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I think, well, I'm hoping in this moment, because frankly, most people finna just be even broker than ever before. And I don't say it to be funny, but like that's just kind of reality. I think I'm hoping that this time that people genuinely learn to not only just be more compassionate, but to be humble. I have seen people still talk about like fast food workers about not like deserving $15 because they feel like they make this amount of money. And it's just like, with all due respect, you dummy. You're underpaid. That person is underpaid. Y'all both underpaid. Y'all should be more mad about who's unpaying y'all, and this isn't behind that. So I don't know for sure. I will say in some cases, just from like going outside, looking online, talking to people, I'm encouraged. Then there are moments where I'm like, I don't know if we're gonna make it. But I would like to think, because we're going to have to face it no matter what. Like when you look at those pictures of people at food trucks, there are already so many people hungry. Yeah. And I know it shouldn't have had to take them to fall that low or to be pushed that far down, because it's not their fault. To see how easily any of us could succumb to poverty, particularly in this country, to get that message. But hopefully people are really learning that, and then we can kind of move beyond this idea of like, I'm better than you, or this, that, and the other, when in fact, like, we're all kind of just set up to fail more often than not, unless you're the people kind of taking advantage.
Yeah. I think the next two questions kind of follow right on where you landed. Are there policies or movements or ideas that give you hope for the future? Are we anywhere close to changing for the better?
Well, I think, now the economy is ruined. One great way to reignite it is to get rid of the racist game show hosts and actually kind of pursue climate change, because at this rate, this will be like the first pandemic of many in the next decade, which is like a terrifying thought. So I know that's easier said than done, but I guess in the interim, Joe Biden, if you read my work, you can understand I'm not the biggest fan. That said, I'm gonna vote for him because the auntie made me, so it's over. But no, I am encouraged that Joe Biden has embraced, to an extent, debt cancellation. It's not exactly as far as Bernie Sanders, which was the ideal, basically cancel all that shit for everybody. Elizabeth Warren was like within like a price band, which is fine, but I still think for everybody. But at least Biden has not only taking it beyond what was like 10,000 at first, it's exceeded that. He's also specifically including Black college graduates who, as I mentioned, people like me are disproportionately impacted. Regardless of like any of this, I'm not going to probably be benefit at all from debt cancellation should it ever pass. But it's not about me. It's about making sure that people don't have to suffer the way I did or the way other people are suffering now. That's the problem. Everybody keep thinking about themselves. It's not about you. It's about all of us. And if people don't realize that sooner, we're all going to die. Now, I'm going to stop trying to sound like Cicely Tyson at the end of that Tyler Perry movie, but sometimes you just got to yell at people like an old Black person.
I think the next question, again, you guys did a good job of playing off of each other. Thank you for that. So is there a vision for a political movement that advances economic justice, or are there specific activists or political leaders that you believe should be leading this movement? Did you have, before we ended up with Biden, or separately at a activist level, somebody who you're like, yep, you're doing it right?
Bernie, Liz, and Julian try to tell y'all, and that's not a diss to any other people, I like Kamala. It's just, she wasn't speaking about specifically those things. I was really encouraged, frankly. Bernie was so close. I mean, I like Bernie, Liz, and I just was really hoping for a progressive vision. I liked a lot of the candidates, to be honest. I get like money to like a lot of them. But in terms of like my politics, they're mostly progressive. Look, we know. Look, I think Joe Biden, as long as he can keep his eyes open and stay taking some ginseng, whatever the hell he's been taking lately, he probably can trip his way into the White House. It's, God willing, because, Trump still might kill us all. I'm cognizant of that. But I'm encouraged by the fact that I think Donald Trump is so terrible and exhausting and is literally saying, I don't care if you all die, that most of the country will be like, you know what, I don't want to die, so I'll vote for this one. And then once we actually just kind of push him on in there, then maybe people like AOC, Maxine Waters and particularly Elizabeth Warren can just shake him, Bernie too, and keep pushing him in a progressive direction. And if he wants to, scam as if he's like some new FDR person, try to erase all his record, that makes my eyes roll, but I won't be dead, so I'll take it. This is why they don't invite me to be a pundit, but why do you?
You could do it. You could do it. We have a question from London 27 that's changing gears a bit. I saw your book, I Can't Date Jesus, was announced it would become a TV show on this book's release date. That's awesome. But what are your thoughts on the fact that it was announced at the same time?
Who asked that question? Okay, I am really excited about the idea of taking I Can't Date Jesus and making it a show that I wish I had growing up. I'm just as excited about potentially doing that with I Don't Want to Die Poor. It coming out on the same day. It wasn't intentionally supposed to come out that day, but you know what? It came out and people were so happy and really excited. And for some people, like, who the hell is that? Oh, wait, they mentioned I Don't Want to Die Poor. They actually clicked the link that day. So we are grateful. Most of last week is a blur, though, just because pub weeks usually are. But that is especially true during a pandemic. And also, I don't remember anything because it's a pandemic. I do know after this, I'm going to praise God for y'all all coming and order cookies.
So
why did I just sound safe so far? It's that Lifetime
you
movie.
sure did.
Balm and Gilead. That's that Karen Clark shared. I got to turn on Megan again and get the heathen back. I'm kidding.
So I have a couple of friends who have written 2 books, and they always say that the experience of writing book 1 and the experience of writing book 2 is very different. Did you find book 1 or book 2 easier to write?
The second book was a nightmare. Last year was just really different. Here's the thing. It was writing books are not, there are certain aspects of writing the books are fun because my books are like a mix of pain and like humor. I'm a smart ass. So the parts of the books are always fun to write. But the second time I thought was going to be, the aim was to make it a much more pleasurable experience because I had a more realistic expectations. A lot of life happened last year, so and some things that were supposed to happen did not. So that it just was a really complicated time that exacerbated an already tight schedule. So it was a nightmare to write. Really hated it, but I think something great came from it because I'm really, really proud of the book. And now that I'm removed from it, I'm honestly like proud of myself for pulling through to write something that I think is actually better than my first book and like a step forward for me as a writer, as a storyteller. Even from all that pain kind of came from it. So I'm glad, but I hated writing it. Yeah. I'm consistent about saying that, but I really hated it.
Did you learn any tactics or do you have any thoughts on how you managed to push through to keep writing? Because I mean, it's hard. And I think, writing, people don't realize what a personal and exhausting and draining experience it is when it even is remotely about you and yourself, and when you're having to pull from yourself so much while so much else is going on in your life. How did you manage to get that done?
The one thing about me, if it needs to get done, especially if I signed a contract, it will get done. It's not a benefit because, again, in the same way everybody else is overworked and underpaid, so am I. I started writing my career on the internet, particularly during hard financial times and tight budgets. So I'm used to having to churn out a lot of product, but I don't really want to do that with the books because these are books and they last forever. I just think for me last year, it really is that simple. I had no choice. And I really think when you have no choice, you get something done, or at least I consistently do. I know when people talk about writer's block, I get that, but that's also more so when people are being like really passionate and creative and like, it's my art. And when you're allowed to write in that space, I do understand the concept of blocks and taking time and letting it fill out. Because if you actually have the time, you should take it. But they give you a time to write a book, but you also have to get the shit done. So I'm more about like just get the shit done. After a while, I was like, all right, literally hit yourself and like, you need to write it. You want your money? Yeah, go write it. So I got it done. I literally cried out parts of it, but I definitely got that shit done.
Yeah. I mean, and it's beautiful, and it's absolutely
Thank
beautiful.
you.
So congratulations to you. We have a couple more minutes, so if any of you have more questions, do you get them in? Michael, I don't know that you're going to have a good answer for this. I don't know that I have a good answer for this, but one of the things I try and think about a lot is, what would financial stability look or feel like to me? Like, a lot of people, I think, have like a number in mind, but you already brought up the like very salient point that like you can make $300,000 a year and be paycheck to paycheck. You can make $40,000 a year and like with, depending on where you're living, like, you know, have a little savings or something. So it's not a number, but it's for some people a feeling or an accomplishment or something like that.
I think when I pay off the private student loan that I wrote the book about in full, that will make me feel better. The government loans I will deal with, but that's going to be taken care of too. I just think actually taking that private loan out is the first real big step. So I feel like I'll be more comfortable. Because then after that's removed, then I can actually start considering, all right, now I can really plan for my retirement, which I knew to do, but I wasn't able to because $1,000 or some dollars a month went to these loans on top of my other bills. But also, let's just hope I Can't Date Jesus goes to series, so then I'll feel a little more comfortable. But the TV show alone will not, look, nothing is for certain, especially in this economy. Look at that man being president. But it's getting rid of them loans. That's my really starting point, because I'm paying, once I get rid of that private loan, I can really plan the way I was raised to plan by my mom for like my security and future. Because I don't want to be working at 90. And also I'm a Black man. That's a big risk. I'm gonna make it to 90. We're gonna hope so.
I was gonna say that life expectancy does not promise.
About catfish, I'm playing.
So, I mean, I guess one of my other questions is, how much of your financial stress is from the day-to-day, like, okay, how much money is in my account? How much do I have to pay on these loans this month? And how much of it is like what you just described, the fact that you're like, one day I will either need to stop working or want to stop working, and will I be able to do that? Or will I at least be able to slow down or change my life in ways that I want to, like have a retirement, something like that?
Well, have you noticed I'm at ease now? That's because I'm not really worried about paying them loans. They're gonna get paid off. So like, I'm like, again, like everything is not perfect, but I'm at ease. Honestly, the journey even of this second book has it was rockier than I thought, but I've landed at the spot that I was hoping to at this point in life, is that to feel like, you know, it's turned around. So the day-to-day, I'm not gonna pretend I don't worry about money, especially because the economy is obliterating. To be blunt, like if you don't grow up with money and then you're gonna be in debt, you're gonna have like, I don't know if I can use that word, but I have trauma. I'll just say that. So I'm, you know, I am more comfortable and still confident that I will tackle much of what I wrote about, because I also don't process any of that anyway. So I'm at peace with that. I just feel better. I don't worry about it day to day anymore. So for people that do, that's always really hard because unless you're giving somebody some money, it's only so much. You can really do to motivate them. I would just say, you know, for whatever it is, I always try to just have a moment and then figure out how to be productive. So on the days where I really was worried day to day about money, even last year, again, where I thought I was going to be in a much different position than I was in, and, you know, just stuff a lot of life happened. After a while, though, I just kind of finally stopped worrying about it. I just kind of let go of the idea that I can manage this and can control this. It took me to have to fall completely to like the ground to really just let go, but I did. And so falling completely just like that low got me to get over it. And then just, you know, we work hard. Being better off helped, but honestly, I kind of reached a more peaceful space because I just felt so low. Hopefully you don't have to do that. I just think you have to forgive yourself if it's out of your hands. Yeah. I think I'm just stubborn sometimes and like not expecting perfection or expecting these to be like the way I want them to be when they're not going to be that way all the time.
I actually want to talk about that, the forgiving yourself. And one of the things that I think you handle so adeptly in the book is that it's not just about kind of money, poverty, who has, who doesn't have. There are also like the thing that we know is that there are so many racial undertones to the way people of color who don't have money are treated and the way that white people who don't have money are treated. What do you think is kind of, and I think part of it is like the blame game, right? The blame of like, well, you should have pulled yourself up by your bootstraps versus, you know, this is a mining town that was completely devastated, yada, 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 which is just kind of like a recent narrative that we've been hearing. But I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
You know, I was almost going to touch my face because of the scratch, but I was like, I can't die.
Don't do it.
So do it. It's not worth it. Well, I just not to oversimplify, but actually not oversimplify. I just think that because people don't really have any empathy for Black people, like that's just kind of the end and the beginning of it. It's interesting. Some excerpts from "I Don't Want to Die Poor" came out last week. One was at NBC News, one was at Medium. I love being a contributor to NBC News' thing, but the readers tend to be skew older and white, and it was. Not only have I been lectured recently because I use the phrase old white men to talk about old white men, I also, from the excerpt they got out, I'm still being lectured about why did you take out this money not thinking you didn't know, blah, blah, blah. Again, they don't extend that empathy to, I think it's fascinating that for 3 years, the New York Times and many publications spent chasing economic anxiety from white people who just, they wanted to excuse them being racist. And here I'm talking about actual economic anxiety and people who are really facing economic anxiety. And yet you still don't quite see those stories yet on a wide scale. But again, it's just like that lack of empathy. But I don't know. I hope I'm not going to tangent, but I just think this is one, again, it's me trying to take this into my own hands and trying to at least put that into the ether. And hopefully more people follow because I just think it's really important. I mean, frankly, look, we are, I don't know when the pandemic itself ends, when we can actually, I can see you in person again. But I do know the day-to-day financial windfall is going to be for a while. So a lot of people are going to be hurting. And so, you know, for people who felt afraid to talk about the struggle before, I mean, you might as well talk about it now because more people were in the boat with you before. It's just now it's no point in trying not to hide it. And as far as like the forgiving yourself part, I'll just say it might take you longer than it should, but in my case, it was me forgiving myself for something I didn't need to be really forgiven for. And the minute you finally trying to recognize that, it's just, again, it just kind of flows off.
All right. Well, before I hand this back to Alan to close out, I had one more question for you, Michael. And this is the mean one because you literally just finished something that is such a great accomplishment. And this is the jerk question to ask, but what do you think is next for you? Or what do you want to do next?
Who asked that? I'm trying to get out the ghetto. That's always that's always please buy I Don't Want to Die Poor.
Click, it's right there.
Yeah, because you know I'm trying to go to TV land, but you know we still got to sell books, so we got to have multiple hustles.
Bills to pay right now.
Yeah, Donald Trump is president. Please buy I Don't Want to Die Poor.
All right, Alan, I think back to you.
Awesome. Well, I actually have one more question for both of you. I'm curious, like during this pandemic, being trapped in your homes, what helps you like break out of that feeling? What are you going to read? What are you going to escape? Can I get a couple recommendations from each of you for that?
Ooh. I mean, I would say that I'm doing the opposite of escaping, and I'm trying to like arm myself with knowledge so I feel like I know how long I could be in here and how long I could be in this situation. I'm one of those people who like knowing more helps me feel better. So I've just been reading a ton of news, just been trying to read like a ton of kind of first-person accounts of people who are on the front lines. Sorry, I used the word front lines of this. I need to stop doing that. But people who are like medical professionals, people who are really out there kind of being exposed to the virus, really trying to read a lot of science writers and figure out what this is all about and kind of what comes next. And then outside of that, this guy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I saw a thing coming this way. I was like, please don't let that be whatever. It was a glare. So Well, actually, like Gillian, I've been reading. I was reading about this before the pandemic because I felt it coming. Like when stuff started happening in January, I wake up at morning Joe o'clock. That's really not. That's not a lie. Like so, I get up, I go through Twitter, I scroll stuff, I go through her job. I got more. I make a little bit more money now, so now I can afford a subscription. I checked. Got you. And then I've been like one book that I've been reading that just to kind of always makes me laugh. Samantha Irby. I'm obsessed with her, so that's been really helpful. But I've been honestly just like Gillian reading a lot of Corona related stuff, and I am a news junkie and political junkie, so a lot of Trump hate reading, and also just like, oh wait, is he not gonna get reelected? So yeah, it's a lot of news stuff, which I need to stop. So I escaped to Samantha Irby, and you should do with me. I got mine too. Please, bye. Click.
Yes. Absolutely. And like I said, today is the last day that we are offering free shipping nationwide. So click that button, get it shipped to you for free today. I want to thank you both, Michael and Gillian, so much for being here. It's just been fantastic. And then to all you out there who tuning in, your patronage is what enables us to bring you programming like this. And we cannot continue to host these types of events without book sales to support them. So please do press that button and do purchase I Don't Want to Die Poor. You can also click the follow link up above next to the Politics and Prose icon and see what we have coming up. And, you know, we do have something on Sunday. It's Fanny Singer. And she's going to be in conversation with her mom, Alice Waters, and that's at 5 p.m. So tune into that. We have a lot more coming up, so please check that out. And I just want to say thank you all so much and stay well read.